Good morning from Sridham Mayapur, dear devotees. Shri Guru Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Gaur Jai Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Jaya Radha Madhava Jaya Kunja Talk Ryan Tulsi. Madhava Jaya Kunja Jaya Gopi Janna Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Girivaradhari Jaya Yashodanandana Jaya Brajajanaranja Yashodanandana Brajajanaranja Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare Krishna Hare Krishna Hare Rama Shavamurotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraye Vede Ramayanishchara Purane Bhagate Tata Bhagavante Chamadricha Hari Sarvatavite Mukam Karodi Vachalam Bambum Bandayate Vidyam Yat Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinatarana Paramanandu Madhava Paramananda He Madhava Padunga Luchi Makaranda Se Makaranda Panakori Anande Bolo Hari Hari Haringa Name Vandavela Hari Bori Be Chakadola Se Chakadolanka Paraye Manamo Rahu Nirantare Manamo Nirantare Rahu Ha Krishna Boli Jiva Jao Ha Krishna Boli Jao Jiva Mote Udara Radha Dava Mote Udara Radha Dava Mote Udara Radha Dava Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees from Sridham Mayapur, and welcome to our morning adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And today's adventure is from the third canto, Srimad Bhagavatam, chapter 29. We're going to be reading from text number 11 and 12. As soon as I get myself set up here. Madguna Shruti Matrena Moi Sarva Guhasaye Manogatira Vichina Yatagangam Basombudo Lakshanam Bhakti Yogasya Nirgunasya Hudaritam Ohoichava Radhitaya Bhakti Purushottame. Translation: the manifestation of unadulterated devotional service is exhibited when one's mind is at once attracted to hearing the transcendental name and qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is residing in everyone's heart. Just as the water of the Ganges flows naturally down toward the ocean, such devotional ecstasy, uninterrupted by any material condition, flows towards the Supreme Lord. Srila Prabhupada, reading from his purport, he says the basic principle of this unadulterated, pure devotional service is love of Godhead. Madguna Shruti Matrena means, quote, just after hearing about the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. These qualities are called Nirguna. The Supreme Lord is uncontaminated by the modes of material nature. Therefore, he is attractive to the pure devotee. There's no need to practice meditation to attain such attraction. The pure devotee is already in the transcendental stage, and the affinity between him and the Supreme Personality of Godhead is natural, and is compared to the Ganges water flowing towards the sea. The flow of the Ganges water cannot be stopped by any condition. Similarly, a pure devotee's attraction for this transcendental name, form, and pastimes of the Supreme Godhead cannot be stopped by any material condition. The word avichina, meaning without interruptions, is very important in this connection. No material condition can stop the flow of the devotional service of a pure devotee. Gora graganya gana gotra goloruharam Goranga gudatama gopyara kopa briksham Gopala gadaratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshikavaram satatam namami Panchakopatarubhishcha Kripa sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we've been speaking something about what is bhakti in the mode of ignorance, what is bhakti in the mode of passion, what is bhakti in the mode of goodness. And now we've come to these verses, famous verses, which are quoted in Chaitanya Charitamrita and by Jiva Goswami and Bhakti Sundarbha and many places by our acharyas to define what is nirguna bhakti. Today we're going to have a lot of technical terms. So if you have a hard time with that, just fasten your safety belt. I promise you will survive. And it helps. It's not bad for us. It's good for us to hear these terms, to hear this bhasa, or this language of our previous acharyas, which is full of all type of purport. So we're reviewing a little bit from the last few days. This verses speak about nirguna bhakti, or bhakti which is freed from the modes of material nature. The previous verses we were reading from text 8 to 10, spoke about saguna bhakti, or bhakti in the modes of material nature. So in this verse, Lord Kapila Dev is describing these verses, two of them, that there are three qualities described in these verses. He describes some more coming up also to nirguna bhakti. The first he mentions is madguna shruti matrena, that just by hearing about Krishna, mano gatir avichina, those topics continuously, avichina attracts the course of the heart and mind of Krishna, who is described in this verse as sarva guhasaye, or literally sarva meaning all and guha meaning heart and asaya means shelter, that he's literally the heart of everyone, the heart of the hearts of everyone, or the shelter of everyone's heart. The second quality of nirguna bhakti described in these verses is it's ahoituki. It has no motivation. It's causeless. And the third quality, it's avyavahita. Or we could say apratiyata, as described in the first canto of the Bhagavatam. Avyavahita means that like avichina means it's continuous, it never stops. That's a synonym to apratiyata. Avyavahita means that it's not separated. Unlike the previous verses in text 8, Lord Kapila Dev used the phrase binadrik, meaning someone who has a separate vision from the Lord. And again, he used that same phrase, or similar phrase, pritag bhav, in text 9 and text 10, when he spoke about bhakti and passion and bhakti and goodness. So the symptoms of saguna bhakti, bhakti in the modes of nature, is that it has a separate desire from the Lord. Whereas one of the three qualities spoken in these verses of nirguna bhakti is it's avyavahita. It's not separated. It's just the opposite of that. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments, because this bhakti is avyavahita, it means it's not blocked by gyan or karma. It means it's not blocked by sattva gun or rajagun. And that means it's beyond the gunas. And we spoke some different things about this. I'd like to go back again and look at some of the verses that we spoke from the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which were perhaps a little startling for some devotees. And I've been struggling trying to explain these verses in a proper way. It has a very deep purport. Mahaprabhu told Sanatana Goswami that Vaishnava Deha, or the Deha, the body of a devotee, prakrita kabunoi, it's never material, never prakrita. Rather, aprakrita deha bhaktya. The body of a devotee is always transcendental. It's chid anandamoy. It's full of bliss. So when does that take place? That was our question, I think, from our first session on these verses. And Mahaprabhu explains, Diksha Kali Bhakta Kori Atma Samarpana. That Diksha Kali, at the time of initiation, Bhakta Kori, when the devotee, this is in the fine print of the legal agreement, becomes Atma Samarpana, when he becomes completely surrendered, then at that time, Sei Kali, means at that time, Sei Kali, Krishna Tadi Kori Atma Sam. Krishna considers that devotee to be equal to himself. So at that point, someone may raise their hand, say, excuse me, I've been here for a long time, and I was initiated and everything, but it doesn't seem like my body is like that yet. So why is that? And we spoke about Saranagati and Saranapati, and how if the Saranagati is not done properly, if it is done properly, then there's no more anarthas. Those anarthas are destroyed. But if we haven't done the Saranagati in the proper sense, we haven't completely surrendered to Guru, which frankly is the general case of most of us, then we have to go through all these steps of anartha nibritti and et cetera, et cetera. And then we spoke about what is bhakti, and how bhakti begins with shraddha, with faith, but in particular, Acharyas describe, Jiva Goswami says in Bhakti Sandarbha, it begins with shastriya shraddha. Okay, now we're going to start getting into some technical terms. Okay, if your safety belt's not fastened yet, fasten it quickly. Okay, here we go. So Bhaktivinoda describes two basic types of faith: lokik shraddha, common faith. Everybody says he's a pure devotee, so he must be. There's at least 15 or 20 devotees who say he is, so he must be a pure devotee. And that one's got his t-shirt on also. He must be a pure devotee. That's lokik shraddha. Paramartik shraddha, or transcendental faith, is of two basic types. And as we'll discuss a little today, these phrases which are used by Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his commentary on the first verse of Mahaprabhu's Shikshastika prayers are an adaptation of two other phrases from Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha. And we want to explore that a lot more today. So it's a little bit of a technical discussion today, but it's very important that we understand something about what is Suddha Bhakti and why is it that I don't have these proper results. As Bhaktivinoda says in one article, if we don't understand what is Suddha Bhakti, if we don't understand what is Saguna Bhakti or impure Bhakti, then we may become discouraged and think, oh, it doesn't work. And we may stop performing it. But if we understand what is Suddha Bhakti and what is my lacking, what is it that I'm not doing properly, then we can have some inspiration. So there's two types of paramartik shraddha: sastarta, avaranamoyi shraddha, faith which is based in Shastra, And this type of faith is avadharanamoyi. It's characterized by fear. And that someone thinks, I have to follow this Shastra, otherwise I'm going to go to hell. The second type of Paramarthik Shraddha is also Shastriya Shraddha, or also faith in Shastra. But it's called Bhagavat Lila Madhurja Lobhamoyi Shraddha, or faith which is characterized by lobha, or greed. And it comes by hearing the Madhurja Lila, the sweet pastimes of the Lord. So, this faith is very, very important, and spoken about by Krishna to Uddhava in the Uddhava Gita, 11th canto. He says, Yadritshaya matkatado jatta shraddhas tuya puman nanirvino nati sakto bhakti yogo shasiddhaida. Yadritshaya means by some good fortune, somehow or other. Yadritshaya matkatado jata shraddhas. The jata means to take birth. Jata shraddhas, some faith in my kata. Very similar to what's being discussed in these verses today, where Lord Kapila Dev, he's saying, Madguna Shruti Machina Mai Sarva Gunashraye, that someone develops some taste in hearing my kata. So such a person, Krishna tells Uddhava, is somehow or other, by good fortune, they develop this faith in hearing and chanting my glories. Such a person who has two other qualifications, interesting qualifications. Na nirvina, nirvina means disgusted. Na nirvina, nati sakto. They're not disgusted with material life, nor are they enamored with material life. If we're too disgusted with material life, then we become dry. We become like jnanis. And if we're too attached to material life, then it becomes very hard for us to progress because we're attached to sense gratification. So later in this same chapter of the 11th canto, Krishna describes what this faith is. Again, he uses the same phrase, Jata Shraddha, that in the beginning this Shraddha takes birth. Jata Shraddho Makatasu. And what is the beginning of this faith? We have faith in Krishna Katha. Krishna Katha is so very, very important. We were having this discussion. Did you see the verse I sent you in a little discussion about this? We're having this discussion about hearing Krishna Katha. And some devotees, they say, oh, I don't like to go because they're doing some politics or they're not speaking very pure Krishna Katha. But Srila Prabhupada, he says in several places, one is which is in Krishna book, he says that the purpose of this Krishna conscious movement is to facilitate people to come together to hear and chant about Krishna. So if we do away with the Srimad Bhagavatam class, then this movement won't attain the desired result that Srila Prabhupada wanted. It won't be able to serve its purpose. It's such a very, very important function. And we should see that all the other activities in our movement, such as management, such as cooking for the devotees, such as collecting money, building temples, all of these other things are serving these principles of Krishna Katha and Krishna Kirtan. So Krishna tells Uddhava, Jata Shradoma Katasu Nirvina Sarva Karmasu, that in the beginning, they have this faith in my Katha, in Nirvina Sarva Karmasu, they're disgusted, Sarva Karmasu, with all different types of prescribed activities, which Jiva Goswami describes as Vanashram Dharma. They're completely disgusted with Vanashram Dharma, all these prescribed activities, and what to speak of the activities of romance and sense gratification. He says, but at the same time, Veda Dukatmakam Kamam, they understand, Veda means they know, Dukatmakam, that this kama, this lust, just leads, as Krishna says in the Gita, Yehi samsparsaja boga Dukkha yonaya eva te adyantavanta kuntaya nateshi ramate Buddha. And it's just suffering, beginning, middle, and end. That's all this lust is. They know that. They memorize this verse of Bhagavad Gita. Veda dukatmakam kama. They understand that I'm really going to suffer if I try to enjoy like this. But parityage pyanishvara. They can't stop. They can't give up their attachment to it. So what should they do? In the next verse, Krishna says, Tato bhajeta mam prita. Keep worshiping me. Don't stop. Just don't stop whatever you do. Sometimes devotees, they say, oh, it's very hard to chant the Hare Krishna mantra. We shouldn't, better we chant the names of Gaurnitai, or better we chant the name of Gurudev. They have a lot of colorful ideas, instead of chanting Hare Krishna. But we chant Hare Krishna because we have a better program than chanting Gurudev's name, or a better program even than chanting Mahaprabhu's name. We chant Hare Krishna, and by so doing, we please Gurudev, and we please Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And therefore, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, for that reason, in Chaitanya Bhagavad, he says that Jadi Yama Prati Sneha Taki Sabakar Tabi Krishna Vyati Rikta Naga Biyar. If you love me, you love my instructions. Do what I tell you. Don't chant my name. Chant Krishna's name. And he gets pleasure from that. So some people say, though, it's very difficult to chant Hare Krishna because there's so many nama-parads, but with the name of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, there's no nama-parad considered. But Srila Vyasadeva, understanding the mentality of such persons, in the Padma Purana, when he speaks about the Dasnama-parad, the 10 offenses to the holy name, afterwards, understanding some people are going to go, oh my God, especially this last one, thinking that I'm the body is an offense to the holy name. That's pretty tough to avoid. He says, Nama-parada yuktanam. Okay, maybe you have nama-parad. You're doing nama-parad. Yuktanam means you have that. Prabhupada quotes this verse in one purport. Nama-parada yuktanam namanyeva harantyagam. Avishranti payuktani tani bhata haranicha. So if you're chanting nama-parad, what is the solution? Keep chanting. And the nama-parad will go away. So this is the same statement Krishna is making here. That what do? Your Veda dukatmakam kaman, you know that this sense gratification, I'm really going to suffer if I do this. It's 11 o'clock at night, and if I eat this last piece of pizza, I know it's going to really be hard for me, but I just can't resist. Or these chili pakoras cooked in oil, even though it's 11 o'clock, I have to eat it. Parityage panishra, I can't give it up. So Krishna says, anyway, chill out. Tato bhajeta mam pritaha. Just keep worshiping me. Don't stop. Shradhalur, with faith. With this faith. And this is the point of our discussion. How is this faith coming? In Drita Nishchaya, firm faith. I'm not going to give it up. Jusamanas chatan kaman, even while you're doing your sense gratification, even while you're doing your nonsense, you keep chanting. Don't stop the chanting. Don't stop your devotional activities. And while you're doing that, dukkha comes to garhayan. You should realize, wow, I'm really a jerk. I'm really bad. Let me say something really frank and straightforward, because this is how you speak to friends. Sometimes devotees, they have a doubt. Why is it? We understand what Prabhupada said, don't eat meat. We understand what Prabhupada said, don't gamble, don't get intoxicated. Those are all logical things. But this last of the four regulative principles, some people say nobody follows that. I've heard devotees speak like that. And even if you speak very frankly with Harisari Prabhu or one of Prabhupada's servants, practically all the grihastas are coming to Prabhupada and saying, Prabhupada, I'm not following that. And not only the grihastas, but a lot of times the sannyasis were also coming and saying they couldn't follow that. So I remember having a conversation with one senior devotee about this topic a few years ago in Kiev. And the senior devotee was saying, so why do we tell people this? Everybody just feels bad about themselves, and why don't we just tell them anyway, just do the best you can, and everybody has a hard time with this. And I said, no. We can't, first of all, you can't change what Srila Prabhupada spoke. Prabhupada spoke very strictly about 4 regulated principles, including for Grihastha devotees. But Prabhupada also understood the devotees weren't able to follow that, a majority of them. So then, how do we understand? Well, the real question is, why did Prabhupada say like that? Huh? And the answer is found in this verse, Dukkha darkam chagarhayan. That even while you're doing your nonsense, you should feel bad about it. Garayan has a similar root to the word of garam, or fire. And in the fire of repentance, it burns everything up. If Srila Prabhupada, I think, would have said, anyway, just with your wife, it's okay, then who knows, instead of Bhagavatam class, we might have started having class on Kama Sutra or Hare Krishna, some stuff like that. Who knows where the Western devotees would go with it. But Prabhupada was very, very strict, and you can't deny what Srila Prabhupada said. So the devotees, by remembering what Prabhupada said, then they're going to lament. They're going to feel bad. And that is Dukkha Darkam Chagarayam. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, in his commentary on this verse that we're just reading, Jata Shraddha Makadasu, he cites a few verses speaking about what is the nature of someone who has Shastriya Shraddha, or he calls it Matkatadu Jata Shraddha. Krishna says that faith in Krishna Katha. Again in the 11th canto, both verses in the 11th canto, chapter 19, it said, Shadamrita Katayam Me. Krishna says, having firm faith in the blissful narrations of my pastimes. In chapter 11 of the 11th canto, he says, Shradalur Matkata Shunvan. Again, this word Shraddha. A faithful person who constantly hears such transcendental activities. So this Shraddha is very important. I want to back up a little bit. Sometimes you have to take 2 steps back to take a step forward. So we're going to go back a little bit to preface some of the things we were making before. And I'd like to read you something from Jiva Goswami's commentary on this verse from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam, where Krishna says, what do you do if you... Krishna tells Uddhava, he speaks about faith, the importance of faith. And Jiva Goswami says in this verse, Shada matram heturayataha, that the cause of bhakti is faith alone. It's a little different than what we were speaking before. The cause of bhakti is faith alone. And this is explained in this verse. And Jiva Goswami quotes this verse from 1st canto, 2nd chapter, Shushusho Shadadanasya, Vasudeva Kata Ruchi Shanmahat Sevaya Vipra Punya Tirtana Sevanat. That this Shraddha means Vasudev Kata Ruchi. It's so important that we develop taste for hearing Krishna's topics. And this Shraddha means faith in the topics of Krishna and having some attraction to them. It's such a very, very important point. Now, I'd like to turn, we're going to get a little bit technical now, to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur's Madhurya Kadambini. And he speaks also about this Shraddha, and then we're going to clarify this a little bit, what he says from Jiva Goswami's Bhakti Sandarbha. I promise you it's going to be a little technical today. So please take a deep breath, okay? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that there's 2 basic types of faith, which he calls Sabhaviki and Balotpadita. Sabhaviki means it's natural. It's just, it comes on its own. And sometimes we see like that. Some people, they come to bhakti. Lynn is a bit like that, I find, in some ways. Lynn, who's listening right now, she lives in Eastern Washington. And she just came, and all of a sudden she just, wow, I just really like this bhakti. And I have some natural taste for it. And that may be due to some previous birth activities. Just svabhaviki. It's just a natural faith that somebody has. Sometimes people are very, very simple. We see in the villages, someone may be illiterate. They can't read. They don't know any verses in Bhagavad Gita or anything. But their shraddha is svabhaviki shraddha. It's natural. And this is the way that bhakti should be. This is what I feel one of the reasons that Srila Prabhupada encouraged all the Western devotees to come to India and spend some time, because you spend time in India, you see people who are practicing Sabhavaki Bhakti, natural Bhakti. It's not, they're not trying to hide things. They're who what they are. And I've seen Mahants watching the cricket match and this and that, and they know, yeah, it's not Suddha Bhakti, and I shouldn't do that. But they're not hung up about it, like the Western devotees are. We have to hide everything and do this or that. Not only do they sometimes watch cricket, and just like I saw someone, I'm sorry to say this, but someone made some expose, criticism, Hare Krishna, of Srila Bhakti Charumaharaj recently. And what they showed a photograph of him, horror of horrors, shock of shocks, in his sannyas dress, playing cricket. And he was hitting the cricket ball. And they said, just see, how can you? But he grew up as a young boy liking cricket. And I don't think he was playing cricket as a devotee hardly at all. But maybe when he was going by, I don't know the story of that picture, but maybe he saw some young children playing cricket and he picked up the bat to play with them, and in that way encouraged them like anything. And he's natural. He's not trying to hide that. It's not a big scandal or anything. It's just what he is. So Sabhaviki Shraddha means natural faith. And then there's Balut Padita. Balut Padita faith means faith which is acquired by being convinced by the preaching of other people. And Prabhuji, you really don't want to leave. If you go back to your girlfriend, you're going to suffer. Wasn't Sachitananda Prabhu and I were both bhakti leaders, and we had those conversations on more than one occasion with different devotees. You don't want to do it, Prabhu. Just stay. Just try another day. Have a gulabjamun. Everything is okay. But so that's Balut Padita, Shraddha. Means Shraddha, which is convinced by the preaching of others. So Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, he describes uses a couple of other phrases, which we promised in the beginning we were going to mention. These are Bhaktivinoda, he gives synonyms, this Shastrartha Avarnamoyi Shraddha and his Bhagavat Lila Madhurya Lobamoyi Shraddha. What Jiva Goswami, the phrases he uses are Ruchi Pradhan Bhakti and Vichar Pradhan Bhakti, or Ruchi Pradhan Shraddha and Vichar Pradhan Shraddha. Ruchi Pradhan Shraddha or Ruchi Pradhan Bhakta is a devotee who has natural taste. And Vichar Pradhan Bhakta is someone who has, they're inclined toward logic and argument. That's Shastartha Avarnamoyi Shraddha. Their faith is based on the Shastra, both are Shastriya Shraddha. But one of them is based on rules and regulations, this Vichar Pradhan Shraddha, whereas a Ruchi Pradhan Shraddha, or the faith which is based on hearing Krishna Katha, that type of faith leads toward Raganuga Bhakti. Let me just make an adjustment here, something. Okay. So how does this Vichar Pradhan Shraddha, how is this attained? This is an important discussion. So we're asking this question. Okay, our question was again that how is it that Krishna is saying that Diksha Kali Bhakta Kori Atma Samarpana, that at the time of initiation, that devotee's body becomes as good as mine. And so then the phrase is used, Atma Samarpana, that they're surrendered. So then what is that surrender? That surrender is based on faith. And why is it that we don't have it? How can we develop that faith? This is our subject matter. This is why we're focusing on this. I hope we're not going too fast or too technical for everyone. So now in our course of our discussion, we're discussing now about two types of paramartik shraddha. Let's use these phrases again. Two types of transcendental faith, which are shastriya shraddha, which are based on shastra, and Jiva Goswami calls them ruchi pradhan Shraddha, or Shraddha which comes from a natural taste, which Vishwanath calls Sabhaviki, it's natural, and Vichar Pradhan Shraddha, which is Balut Padita, according to Vishwanath, means it's Shraddha which comes by being convinced by the preaching of other people. So the Vichar Pradhan Bhakta, the devotee who has this type of faith, how does he attain it? In Bhakti Sandarbha, Anucheta 202, Jiva Goswami explains, okay? We're being a little technical. I'm trying to go little by little and spoon feed everybody with this so we can understand it. Actually, it's a very important thing to understand. How do we develop this paramarthik shraddha? What are the types of this paramarthik shraddha? So Jiva says this is the way that Vichar Pradhan devotees, the devotees who have this faith in all the rules and regulations, how they gradually develop shraddha. He says, Tatra pratamam tavat tat tat sangajatena tat tat shraddha tat tat parampara kata ruchadina. Through the association of devotees, sangha jatena, that to that sangha jatena, it takes birth. This intellectually inclined devotee who has this vichar pradhan shraddha, this intellectually inclined devotee is vichar pradhan, he gets this particular type of faith. And he develops faith then, or taste, this ruchadina, in parampara kata, and a taste for discussions received in the disciplic succession. And Jiva Goswami goes on to describe Jata, and beginning from this Jata Bhagavat Samukasya Tattad Anusanginaiva Tattad Bhajaniye Bhagavat Avirbhava Visheshe Tad Bhajana Marga Visheshe Cha Ruchir Jayate. So such a person then, they become Bhagavat Samukasya. Samukasya means their face. Their face is turned then toward the Lord. When they start hearing, they get some taste for this Krishna Katha by hearing from devotees, by associating with the devotees. And then they get a taste for hearing this Katha, this Parampara Katha, Ruchadina. They get a taste for that. So then they turn their face toward the Lord. And then, along with that taste for the kata, they also develop a taste for a specific form of the Lord. This is one's Ishtadev. One becomes attracted to a particular form of the Lord. And this is a sequential thing that happens. It's not just something I'm just randomly going to decide. Like when I was a new bhakta in LA, I remember Debsis with milk. And probably with cheese from you too. Anapani, can you go get it? And could you tell him I'll pay him tomorrow? Unless you have a good amount of money you want to take with it. You can grab my bead bag. I've got Lakshmi in the pocket. Okay, sorry, this is a real world. So, what was my point? Oh, and so it's not just something that we randomly decide on our own. Just like when I was a new bhakta in Los Angeles, I don't remember where I got it. Maybe I bought it in a flea market or something. But I found a little deity, a brass deity, really beautiful deity of Garuda. And I thought, that's really cool. Nobody else has a deity of Garuda. I'm going to show my independence and my, my individuality by having this deity of Garuda. And I don't even know where the deity went to. Later on, I gave him to some other devotees for some other thing. But it's not that we just decide we go to the flea market or someplace and buy a deity and decide, yes, that now I'm really cool. This is my particular. But it's something which comes swabhaviki. It comes naturally. And it's sequential. It comes through karma, through a sequence of events. And he says here also, bhajana marga. One thing is they become attached to the kata. Second thing is they become attached to the form of the Lord. And the third thing is they become attached to a particular path of worshiping the Lord. Poor Anapani. Let's try to remember these topics so we can share with her later on when she comes back. Okay. And then he goes on to say, Tatascha Vishesha. There's some speciality. Tatascha Vishesha Vibhutsayam Satyam Tejas Kato Niketato Va Sri Gurut Venashri Tat Shravanam Kriyate. And so when they have a desire to know more specifically about these things, then what they do is they take shelter of one or more of these sadhus as Shravan gurus in order to undertake a study of the scriptures. And Jiva Goswami then goes on to describe how these devotees who are vichar pradhan bhaktas, they're intellectual devotees, how they attain this shraddha. And there's 6 different ways that they study Shastra. And we'll discuss this in our next session because it's too much right now. But I would like to just finish with a story. We should have some example of a devotee who's has this quality of faith. Jata Shadama Katasu has a quality of faith in Krishna Katha. Our Guru Maharaj would tell the story about one Gujarati Bhakta whose name was Narsingh Mehta. And Narsingh Mehta was a grihasta. He had a family, a wife and children, and he had a lot of daughters. In India, if you have a lot of daughters, it's very difficult. Every Indian, they're always wanting to have boys. Because if you have a daughter, it means you have to get them married, and generally it costs a lot of money for that. It's a very difficult thing. But Narsingh Mehta was just attached to hearing Krishna Katha. And he was so attached that he had this faith that Krishna's going to take care of me. So he would go out and beg alms. He didn't have a job. He was a poor man. But finally, his eldest daughter attained marriageable age. But Narsingh Mehta wasn't even thinking about getting her married, although that's his responsibility. One day, his wife, she heard some of the neighbors criticizing, what is this Mehta family doing? Their daughter is marriageable age. Because women, when they get that age, they're considered to be dangerous. In Vedic culture, they're like goddesses of beauty, and all the men becomes very confused and they go running after them. It's not, we don't have this kind of culture in the West, but Prabhupada encouraged it, that girls should get married at a young age to protect them, and also to protect the boys, to protect the society. That's a controversial thing, and it's something which the whole society has to be on the same page to do. It's not something you can just artificially say, well, Prabhupada said it, therefore I'm going to get my 12-year-old daughter married. And especially if you get her married to, I remember in Los Angeles, there's one devotee, she was 16 and they married her to a Prabhupada disciple who's almost 40. And surprise, 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 it didn't work. Hare Krishna. But it might work in the Vedic culture, in a culture where everybody's on the same page and they all have the same cultural values. But how can it work if you're growing up in a city, in a country where people think it's completely demoniac and strange, and they have those values? The devotees think like that even. How can such a thing work? So anyway, that's a controversial topic. So the neighbors, they were criticizing, they were complaining. This girl, she's marriageable age and she's not getting married. He's keeping his grown-up daughter. It's very, very bad. The Narsingh Mehta didn't even listen, but he was just blissed out thinking about Krishna all the time. But his wife, she didn't have that kind of faith. And their words pierced her heart and caused her a lot of pain. So finally she started chastising her husband one day. What are you doing? You should be thinking about getting your daughter married. Everybody's criticizing us. This is your responsibility. And Narsingh Mehta told her, you silly woman, leave me alone. Why are you disturbing my bhajan? Don't you know in the Gita Krishna says, Ananyas cheta yanto mam? Ye jana paryapasate sesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kemam vahamyam. That I always, persons who worship me with devotion and meditate on me, I always carry what they lack and preserve what they have. Don't you have any faith in Krishna's words? I'm completely surrendered. I've given everything to Krishna. Why are you disturbing me, silly woman? But his wife didn't have faith. She was something of a Vaishnavi, a devotee, no doubt, but she didn't have this kind of faith. And so she chastised her husband. Oh, Krishna's going to bring you some money and make some arrangement for your daughter's marriage? Sure, nonsense. You have to go out and find a suitable bridegroom. Krishna may help you, but if you don't do something, if you just sit here all day long reading the Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita and doing bhajan, what is Krishna going to do? And so she's chastising him like anything. And he's thinking, Oh, Krishna, this silly woman, she's disturbing my bhajan. What can I do? So then he began to cry before Krishna. Hey, Gopinath. We were singing this beautiful song yesterday. Huh? My daughter has attained meritable age. Why don't you make some arrangement? Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he sings. Bala mandanahi jani seva matar kori tomara sansari ama vishai prahari. He said, I don't know whether I'm doing good or bad. Bala manda nahi. I don't know if it's good, Bala, or manda. I don't know if it's bad. Jani seva matra kori. All I know is I'm serving you, Krishna. Tomara sansari. This is your family. It belongs to you. Nischincha hoya ami sevi bato maya grihe bhalo manda hoile nahi moradaya. He said, my dear Lord, all I'm thinking about is your service. I don't have any other thought. This is your family. If there's something wrong with it, you're going to be criticized. There's some fault. They'll criticize you. Why will they criticize me? It's not my responsibility. I'm completely surrendered to you. So Jata Shraddha Mukatasu. He has this faith in Krishna and Krishna Katha. And a devotee, such a devotee like Narsingh Mehta, he never says that this is my family, my wife, my husband. It's Krishna's family. It's Krishna's lady. And I'm here to help serve them. It's Krishna's responsibility to maintain them. So Narsingh Mehta began to cry. My wife is really giving me a hard time. She's disturbing my bhajan. Krishna, you please help. And the very next day, there was a knock on the door. They went and answered the door. And there was some gentleman standing there. And he said, my family were looking for a nice girl for my son to marry. And we heard that you have a very good daughter. Oh, yes, actually we do. And they met the daughter. Said, oh, she's very beautiful. She has very good qualities. Yes, we'd like to marry her to our son. And so everything took place. And Narsingh Mehta, he told his wife, why you worry so much? See, Krishna takes care of everything. And so they arranged a vivahatiti, the particular auspicious time for the marriage to take place. But when they did the Jyotish, the astrology for that, they saw that in the whole next year, there was only one auspicious muhurta, one auspicious time, and that was 4 days from then. 4 days away. So if they're going to get married in the next year, the only time is 4 days away. So they fixed the date 4 days away. And Narsingh Mehta again was very happy, told his wife, see, Krishna's taking care. And the wife said, okay, nonsense. Now we found a boy for our daughter to marry. That's okay. And somehow that happened. Maybe that was your Krishna. I don't know. It happened somehow. But how are we going to pay for the marriage? It would cost so much money to get her married. There has to be a dowry. It costs so many lakhs and lakhs of rupees. And you have no money. You're just a poor man. All you do is sit around all day long chanting Hare Krishna, reading the Gita and the Bhagavatam. Nonsense, lazy guy. How are you going to do this marriage? And Narsingh Mehta said, why you worry? Krishna's going to take care. Oh, Krishna will take care. Yes. Krishna will take care. No, you should go out and borrow some money. Otherwise, how are we going to do this? In 4 days, we need lakhs of rupees. How are you going to get? You have to give saris as gifts. You have to give ornaments to your daughter. You have to arrange a big feast. You have to feed everybody in the whole village. The bridegroom's going to come with a big procession. You're going to have to pay for it. He's going to want some kind of dowry. You're going to have to give it. And this is our social prestige. He said, Krishna will take care of it. I'm a poor man. Who's going to give me money? Nobody will want to pay me a loan. I have no wealth to pay it back. The wife said, okay, look, here's my bangles. Here's my gold earrings, my nose ring. He gave her all the gold ornaments she had. That's the bank balance of poor people in the villages. You take these and you find some wealthy man and see if he'll take those as some, what do you call it when you give collateral, as collateral, and see if they'll give you some, collateral is a big word, You know the word, okay. As collateral, so they'll give you some loan. So now Narsingh Mehta said, okay, now we've got 4 days. I got to go out and find somebody. He went out, and as he was going along, he heard some sound coming nearby. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Oh, someone's having a Bhagavatam class. Wow. Huh? Because Narsingh Mehta really liked to hear the Bhagavatam. Jata Shadama Katasu. He had this faith in hearing Krishna Katha. So he went there, and it was such nice Katha. He forgot all about his daughter's marriage, and he stayed there for 7 days. Just hearing the Krishna Katha, and Narsingh Mehta was just completely blissed out. It was such nice Katha. I'm so happy, such a good Katha. Huh? And then all of a sudden he looked at his watch or whatever it was, the calendar, and realized, oops, my wife is going to kill me. The 4 days have gone by. The marriage ceremony must have already taken place. I'm supposed to collect all this money and pay for everything. My wife is going to kill me. What am I going to do? He thought, I'll lie to her. I'll tell her that I went really a long, long ways away, and that's why I couldn't find anybody who would loan me any money because I'm a poor person. And I went so far away that's why it took me so time to come back. I'm very sorry. So he was thinking like that. And as he was thinking, he was also chanting. And he's very attached to Krishna. And he was going back to his home. As he was going towards his home, near his village, he heard people talking about the marriage ceremony. And they were saying, this was the most amazing marriage ceremony we've ever seen in our life. Narsingh Mehta's daughter wedding, it was like a king's wedding. We've never seen such a wedding, such a feast. We've never eaten before, so many gifts to everybody, such a dowry. It was just like a king's royal marriage. And Narsingh Mehta was, excuse me, whose marriage are you talking about? Your daughter's marriage? You arranged it? What kind of question is that? Stupid question. What are you saying? My daughter's marriage? Yes, your daughter's. It's already done? Yes. Come on, you were there. You were so happy. I was there. Yes, and it was done with so much pomp and ceremony. We've never seen anything like that. And Narsingh Mehta began to cry. Oh, Krishna, yoga came home vaham. Huh? It's true. You promised you'll provide for your devotee, and you did. And he went home thinking, my wife, I don't know what I'm going to say. And he came in, and his wife was so happy. Oh, my dear husband, you come back. And he said, marriage was nice? He said, the marriage was wonderful. And Narsingh Mehta said, how did it go on anyway? Who brought money? You're always in anxiety. You're creating a disturbance in my bhajan, complaining all the time. You didn't have any faith. In Krishna's words, yoga came vaham yaham. Who brought the money? She said, once one of your students came. He was a 10 or 11-year-old boy. He was a black boy. But although he was black, he was very beautiful too. And he came with such a heavy load, so much ghee and oil and sabji and dal and everything. He also brought saris and clothes and money. I didn't even have a place to put everything. And you were there and you were dancing in the marriage ceremony. And Narsingh Mehta then fell down at the feet of his wife. He said, you're very, very fortunate. I wish I could have had the darshan of that little boy. He realized that Krishna took care. So this is faith. This is the faith of a devotee. This is a quality of vichina. It's continuous. It never stops. It's a hoitaki. It's causeless. It has no other purpose. It's not that Narsingh Mehta is thinking, oh, if I worship Krishna, then he's going to give me something to get my daughter married. He's just attached because he has this kata ruchi. He doesn't have the quality of avyavahita, which his wife did, a separatist. He has he's avyavahita. He's not a separatist, whereas his wife is Bina Drig. She has a separate interest from Krishna. She sees something different from Krishna. But Narsingh Mehta is Debsis again. Okay. So anyway, we're going to stop there. I'd like to ask the devotees, as one of our dear Guru Janas sometimes asks, what are you walking away with today? Wow. Sasha was here today too. Oh my gosh, very nice. Naveen Prabhu. What's that? Sasha's wedding. But I'm happy. I hope there was no casualties, that everybody survived this kata and all this philosophy. We're going to speak more about this tomorrow. Anapani, you didn't miss very much. Just a little bit of some philosophy. We'll repeat what we said to you, and she'll miss a little bit of a story. So what are devotees going to walk away with? What are your reflections or comments, questions? We're late. Oh my gosh, it's later than I wanted. Anybody have anything real quick?
Just one, take this one.
I thought you were Jewish, you know. He's got his mask on his head.
So how can we reconcile two statements? One of them mentioning that somehow or other we should never stop chanting Hare Krishna, even if sometimes you might be doing some nonsense. More or less, I don't know if I'm putting the question correctly, but a thought came to my mind that one of the offenses of the holy name is that we commit sinful activities while you're doing that. But then and the other statement is that you made is that just keep doing it. So how can you reconcile that?
This is a really controversial topic. And I'm not going to go there to do it proper justice. I'm just going to say something which will probably get me in a lot of trouble with certain people. But Jiva Goswami, in Bhakti Sandarbha, and also Srimad Bhagavatam, the 11th canto, says that not only should we offer patram pusham phalam toyam, fruit, flower, and leaf, and water to Krishna, but we should also offer our sinful activities. It's pretty radical. Jiva Goswami says that. But not thinking that Krishna is going to like this, or that this is Suddha Bhakti, or that Krishna wants this or something. But in the case of someone like you're speaking of, based on the same verse, Jata Shradha Katasu Nivina Sarvakarmasu, that such a person is, he's attached and he can't give up his sinful activities, then what should he do? Then he should keep going. And even while he's performing his sinful activities, though, he should remember Krishna. And that by that remembrance of Krishna and understanding that I'm a complete rascal, which is a topic I want to get to before we finish this verse. What is our mentality as devotees, and how can we approach these very high things? And even the things we're speaking about today, just about, it may seem like simple faith, they're also very high and very, very difficult to attain. So what is the hope for us? Well, the hope for us, in a nutshell, is spoken in this verse from the 11th canto of the Bhagavatam. Where Krishna says, Jusa manastatan kaman. Even while you're going on doing that activity, dukkha darkam chagarayan, you lament. And in that fire of that lamentation, there's some purification. Because Krishna says in the Gita, sarva dharmam parityaga, give up all religion. He doesn't say sarva papa parityaga, give up all sin. Interesting point. He doesn't say give up all sin. He says give up all dharma and just surrender to me. That's what's important. We're not negativists. We're not persons who are focusing on the anarthas in the heart. Rather, we're focusing on positive things. Our process is not anartha nibritti. Our process is artha prabritti. In the language of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, we're not focused on, we have to give this up, and I'm really not going to do it. I'm not going to look at that girl. I'm not going to look at that girl. And we're clenching our teeth like that. But rather, we look at Krishna. And then maybe if we look at that girl, we look at that boy, and we think, wow, he's really a hunk, or she's really beautiful, whatever. Then we think, this is so stupid. Why am I attached to this? And we lament. And that lamentation is very purifying for us. And that lamentation is a big topic. It's a big subject for these verses. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Something? Okay. Something more?
But maybe you can mention about the verse of Srila Rupa Goswami, where he says that, my dear Lord, I don't have no love for you. I don't know how to perform devotional service. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, this is in line with our discussion I want to have later on. We're in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Rupa Goswami says, "Na prema shravanari bhakti rapi tatavo Vaishnava." He said, I don't have bhakti. I'm not a Vaishnav, but I have this conviction. I have this conviction. This is what Krishna is speaking about also in this 11th canto verse. I have this conviction that if all I do is I practice this bhakti, then everything is going to be okay. I have that conviction. We have to have that conviction because so many of us, we end up falling down, having difficulties. Okay? Dave says again, Pancharatna Prabhu is writing something. This morning I read in Srimad Bhagavatam 137 purport, Prabhupada says, similarly, the transcendental system of devotional service is so free, it may or may not develop in a particular person, even after he undergoes all the detailed formulas. I'd be interested in your comments on this. Very interesting point. Well, the fact is that bhakti is swarat. Bhakti is independent. It's not a formula. Just like love for someone, in our material relationships even, you can't just go to someone and say, look, man, I've given you gifts every day. I bought you chocolate every day. I flattered you, my dear girl. I've done this, and therefore you have to love me. It doesn't work like that. So this is a perverted reflection of divine bhakti, Suddha Bhakti, which also you can't force it. Right? It's independent and it appears on its own. And therefore, how do we develop that? We develop it through Krishna Kripa Srimurti, through the mercy of Gurudev, who's Bhaktistu Bhagavad Bhakta Sangena Parijayate. He's the medium through which that bhakti is coming. Pancharatna Prabhu goes on, my thought in offering worthless things has been like, Lord, I'm attached to these things, but I'm offering to you. Please deal with them as I can't. Yeah, that's very beautiful. Yeah, my dear Lord, please, this is really terrible. I'm really attached to eating these yoga bars or whatever it is. And it's maybe not Suddha Bhakti. It's not really for your pleasure. I really like pizza. It's a fact. I really like pizza. I really like this thing and that thing. And I'm offering to you, but please, you accept them, and please take away my attachment to these things, and let me only become attached to your pleasure. Okay, so we've gone really way over time. We'll stop here. Our next session will be on Friday, day after tomorrow, same time, and we'll continue this discussion about different types of faith. But we're still speaking about the Pradhan Bhakta, that devotee who's intellectual, and how he develops his particular type of faith. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Vanchakalpatarubhishcha, Kripa